Welcome to Book Talk, everybody. We are excited that you have tuned in. I'm Laura.
And I'm Michelle.
And our choice for November is Hidden Valley Road by Robert Kolker. And it is the story of the family of Robert, of Don and Mimi Galvin, and their 12 children.
Yes. So first, we're going to just give you a little background of Don. So Don, he grew up in New York, and he was always interested in either Navy or Air Force. He decided to go the Air Force route, and they originally were going to have the Air Force out east, but they changed their mind and moved it to Colorado, and so he moved his family to Colorado Springs, where they built their home, and he was a big contributor to the Academy he was interested in falconry, and that is what they used for their mascot, and he helped spearhead a lot of that. He was a very brilliant man and a scholar in a lot of ways.
Quite a bigwig, really.
And then Mimi.
And then Mimi was originally from Texas, and her family was she was a debutante. They were wealthy, but her father left, and so her mother took her and her sister to New York, and that's where she really grew up, and she met Don there and fell in love, and she was a very cultured lady. She loved the arts. She loved art. She loved opera. She loved classical music. She loved ballet. She was actually, after they had moved out after a time to Colorado, she and Don both were very, very instrumental in starting Ballet West, which we have here today, because there really wasn't a lot of culture apparently out west at that time, and she was determined that that was something that she really needed, and she really was very intent upon passing that love on to her children too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so year after year they kept having more join their family. They had 10 sons before they had any daughters, and their sons grew up being very, very athletic. They were all handsome, and they seemed normal.
And well liked.
They were very well liked.
Very popular.
Like their father. Until they hit their teenage years. And then the first son, Donald, started to show different signs and different things happening, and they didn't know what it was. They thought maybe it's just hormones and teenage years.
They wanted to hope that that's what it was.
But the sons started to fight a lot, real fights, like hardcore fights, and they had police coming, and then I can't remember how old they were when they were first diagnosed, when they found out it was schizophrenia. Was it in his 20s?
I think 20s for Donald, the oldest son.
But he did live a normal life. He got married. He had a child. He seemed to be able to hold a job, and then it started to slip. It was interesting.
Yeah, it really, really went downhill.
And then they thought, okay, it's just one child, and then another one, and then another one, another one.
So it's pretty amazing to think that 50%, half of their children, had schizophrenia. So that was just, I can't even imagine having to deal with that.
It was hard.
So the daughters, the two youngest girls, they, from the time they were small, their life was dealing with and enduring all the awful things that went on with their brothers. Not only embarrassment, but abuse. Their life was just turned upside down, and they never had a normal childhood at all, and it was really, really sad. And they grew up to be very angry about it, and really needed lots of therapy and lots of help themselves to work through all of this. Yeah.
And then through all of this, it's really interesting because they'll give a story of the family, and then they talk about the medical and where the medical started in the 50s and 60s and what they were doing to try to medicate and help schizophrenics and people with bipolar and mental illnesses. And it was was pretty awful stuff. They would just shut him away. They didn't try to do anything but medicate.
Right, and they didn't understand it. They had no clue what caused it, how to fix it. They initially thought that, I mean, for years and years and years, they thought that it was something the mother had done in her nurturing, that was the cause. And they came to understand, with the help of studying the Galvin family, that it was genetic. And so that was the first step in being able to understand it and to learn how to treat it.
Right.
So they were
They were great contributors.
They were. They went through an absolute nightmare, but in the end, they were able to be of help. Their experience.
Right.
So.
And then some of the brothers kept dying. The father ended up dying. The mother ended up dying, and they were all grown. But the healing process was quite slow. It still was in them, the trauma from the childhood and
right.
watching so much happen.
It's interesting how the daughters reacted to it. The one daughter, and they both, like I said, had a horrible time, but the one daughter just threw herself in and immersed her own life. Even she was married with children, in taking care of her brothers. She was their legal guardian. She took care of all their financial stuff, all their medical stuff. She just served them continually. It was a huge job. I don't know how she did it, but the other daughter, she just wasn't able to do that. She needed distance from it, and it was interesting to see their reactions. They both were abused. They were both sexually abused by one of their brothers. They both felt great anger towards their mother because Mimi did not want to acknowledge any of this. She downplayed it. She didn't talk about it. She didn't explain it to her daughters. She didn't say, be careful around this son. One of the sons had actually killed his wife and then himself. Another son tried to kill his wife, wasn't successful. I mean, they were not safe to be around, but that was never an issue with the mom. So anyway, in the end, they were able to really work through things a lot and get to a better place, don't you think?
And they progressed medically. We're in a much better place now. So we would recommend this book to you. I would totally recommend it. If you're interested in everything that happens, I mean, the content in a lot of the areas is quite hard to read.
It's intense.
But it's a good book.
And it's something that we're all going to deal with on some level at one time or another, because mental illness is all around us. So it was a good read.